Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 165 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. I'm a little late today. I'm sorry. I'm starting like 9 minutes late. I can feel my phone buzzing. I have a feeling people are pinging me. They're like, what is going on? But yeah, let's see here. Yep, just a little bit of traffic, but it's A-okay. Hey, great to have you here. It's episode 165. Let's do this. Let me just try not to knock any cables over while I grab my beverage. Very tenuous setup here. I'm still using the old setup where I don't have my HDMI capture card or anything because I haven't figured out how to get a second machine that is fast enough. You know what? I should take down a to-do to try and get access to one of these iMacs in this room. But I will do that right now, actually. I was about to say I'll do it later, but then it will never happen. So let me just do that right now. Hang on. For admin on iMac in which room am I in? Mills. Sorry to do this in front of you. Due today at 4 p.m. Done. All right, so it's episode 165. Good to see you. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast.
It's me, Mario!
Anything can happen. There is nothing here that's sort of pre-scripted or pre-planned. I might get stuck. Things might go wrong. I might not be able to answer any certain questions or fix certain bugs, but I'm going to try. And that's okay. I'm capturing software development in the raw here. So that's all kind of expected. The second thing I wanted to point out is that this agenda that we're looking at is something you have access to. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, check out the handout section over here. There should be a link to the agenda. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the video description down at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching this on Twitch, well, you don't get video description links or anything like that, but you do get the Twitch chat, which I'm about to drop the agenda into. Ba-bam, Twitch chat, there's the agenda link. There's also a link in there to rate the episode. After I'm done the episode, let me know what you thought. I love reading all the stuff that comes in. Even if you've already done it before, I like to know what sort of things I can do to make the stream better. I read everything that comes in, and I will do my best to adapt the stream to work for you. So keep sending that feedback in. It's great to read everything every week. A quick shout out to the episode guide, which I actually think there's probably a pull request waiting. Oh, I also want to point out, I don't know if you noticed, but my tabs are animating differently. Whoop. You notice that? Notice how they're going up and down like that? If you have like nightly right now, you can get these new tab animations that we're tinkering around with by going to About Config and then setting, what is it? New animation. Browser tabs new animations to true and then restarting the browser. New tab animations. So that's the name of the pref that you can set in About Config. And we're just tinkering with this right now. There are new cases, like there are a couple of different tab animations that we need to consider, like variations on this tab animation, but I'm really enjoying it. Like it's really slick. And one of the nice things about it is that it runs completely on the compositor. So if I were to turn on paint flashing, let me actually do that. Paint flashing. Turn on paint flashing in the browser UI. I don't know if you'll be able to see that whenever it's animating, it's not flashing, which means that we only do one paint and then the rest of the animation occurs in the compositor. Whereas if we were doing all of the animation on the main thread by painting new frames, you'd see that that tab changing color. It'd be like rainbow mode. Kind of like, let me show you an example of something that paints on the main thread, animates on the main thread. Let me think of a good example. What animates on the main thread these days? Yeah, like, you see how like this kind of gets streaky on the side? I think that's because it's kind of animating on the main thread. Am I wrong on that? You notice how that like flashes a little bit? It's like brr, brr, brr. that's what we're trying to avoid, and the tab animations avoid it, thankfully. So that's a new tab animation that we're tinkering with, and if that's something you want to play with, I invite you to, and give us feedback, file bugs on them. So looking back at the pull requests that I've got here, I've got episodes 163 and 164 for the episode guide from last week. Let's check out what SmurfD sent us. He's got, yep, good. He has links to the episodes and the Evernote agenda, the topics I covered, and the rating. This all looks great. As usual, SmurfD kicking butt. These episode guide entries look great. So I'm actually going to just merge these in right away and say thank you. And that's done. So now the episode guide, if you go to it, should have, when it updates, we'll have episodes 163 and 164 there. And hopefully soon we'll have episode 165. And if these episode guides are for you, the viewers, if you have things that you want to add, maybe you have corrections, maybe you have addenda or additional information that other people who watch a particular episode might want, send me a pull request and we can add it to the episode guide. I merge very liberally because the episode guides are for you. So who am I to judge what you find useful? So long as it's not just like graffiti and putting your name into the episode guide, send the content my way and I'll merge it in happily. So if you're not sure how to do that, there are links here in the agenda on how you can send pull requests to the repository. There's a link to the repo here, a contributing guide, which is very handy, and how to create pull requests, a guide that SmurfD used and recommends. Again, shout out to SmurfD, who is like a prolific episode guide contributor, and I really appreciate everything he does, and I'm going to play him an air horn. That'll wake you up. Thank you very much, SmurfD. So, a quick self-check before we dive in. Is everything working? I sure hope so. I've got my microphone working. Oh, I also forgot to mention, there is a new... SmurfD just pointed out that I forgot to mention there's a new About Config, and you're right. We've landed a new version of About Config in Nightly, and it's HTML-based. So if that's a thing that you're interested in hacking on, it's actually a lot easier to contribute to About Config now. The source code is at, About Config HTML. Here's the About Config source code. It's pretty straightforward, and I'll send you a link to the source code of the page if you're interested in checking it out. Hang on, new About Config. That's on Nightly. Source code for page, or I should say the markup for the page, and then it's mostly JavaScript because it's constructed dynamically, that table. So let's take a look here. There's the aboutconfig.js, which is where the vast majority of the code is, and I can show you that here, and we can link to it from our agenda. Source code for page. So check that out if you've got bugs with About Config, well, it should be a lot simpler now to fix them. If About Config is a thing that you use and you want to make modifications, consider sending patches, and I believe the bug that you might want to file, the component that you might want to file bugs against is toolkit preferences. And if you, let's see, there's a meta bug for writing the new About Config, and then there's a meta bug for shipping the new About Config, which is 1524782. So if you've seen any serious regressions that should probably prevent this thing from shipping and you want us to consider them, you could consider filing a blocking bug for 1524782. But at the very least, if you see bugs, file them under toolkit preferences because they will get triaged. And it's got a cute little dragon here. And the reason there's a dragon is because of that initial warning, here be dragons. And then so there's a dragon inside About Config. It's very nice. Okay, so that's About Config, new tab animations. What are we doing today? Well, I wanted to actually, these are the two things I was hoping we could work on. This the same things from last week, but I'd like to reverse the order a little bit. Um, I've got this set of patches that let me try and demonstrate what they currently do. Let me just close some of these terminals. They're getting a bit numerous and confusing. Close that one. Let's pump up the font on this one and make sure we use the right build, and then launch. And I want to show you the behavior that we've got right now with picture-in-picture. So here's Big Buck Bunny. Actually, you know what? Let's use the MDN video page because it's got a bigger video that we can work with. So it's got this flower, and I'm going to put that on loop. So we have this like animating flower here, and right now with my patch, there's a picture-in-picture item here in the context menu, and if I open that up, right now I've got a window that you can't see because my head's over top of it, but I'll move it, and it's not doing anything. But if I go picture-in-picture and close it and then reopen it, well, it doesn't work right away. And I don't know why. Let's have that work, and then I had it working kind of before, and I want to see what the issue is. And it crashed. No good. So the Big Buck Bunny example I think worked, and I need to understand why it only sometimes works. So let's go with Big Buck Bunny, and I can at least hopefully demonstrate it. I will silence Big Buck Bunny. I will put it on loop, and then picture-in-picture. So nothing shows up there, but then I do it again. Huh. Why is it not? And it crashes. What? Come on, I had this working. I definitely had this working. Why is it not working? Is it because I'm streaming now? Is that it? That's really disappointing. Well, we can at least try and figure out why it's not working. So what do I want to do? Well, first of all, let's go, let's reduce the sorts of things we have to worry about. I'm actually going to shelve all of my changes. Actually don't want the picture-in-picture stuff. I just want to worry about the very simple case of a video. Well, I guess I didn't need to shelve. Shoot, now I've done a bunch of work I didn't need to do. All right, I'm going to unshelve it again. But I've written a test, and the way this test works is that we add alternative container. The way this test works is I open up a video, and then I load a video in it from our testing page, and then I make it so that when you click a button, it should redirect the frames. And so what you should get is a video, one video on the left and one video on the right, and the video on the left will play, and then when I click the button, the video on the right should get the frames even though it is connected to the video on the left still. So let's see that example. Browser base content test general browser add alternative container. And since that works, or like as a proof of concept, it works. I'd like to spend today's joy of coding trying to take the proof of concept and turn it into something that is an actual proposal for something that might ship. Because what I built, if you look at the patch that makes it so that we can do this frame redirecting, it's very hacky. I'm jamming a bunch of stuff into header. I moved stuff from private and protected in our headers to public to make it easier to manipulate. So like, here's the test, and if I redirect frames, boom. Now it's not move the frames, it's copying the frames. That is something I wanted to occur. It's copying the frames. Now notice that the left one controls the right one. That is intentional. The end goal being we want to be able to have the video playing in a separate, always on top window, but still controlled over here. And the reason we're not using, two videos, well, there are a couple of reasons why we want to have the controls over here still, even though the picture-in-picture window is separate. And that's because a lot of pages create their own custom controls, which at this time is a pretty challenging thing to try and bring those out in a cross-platform, or not cross-platform, in a way that will work for all sites. Now, we could introduce our own controls in the picture-in-picture window, and that makes perfect sense, and we might do that. But we still want to be able to control the original video from the page it came from, especially if the page itself might want to do certain things with the video, like play or pause it, and we don't want to interfere with that. So we need to have them kind of linked together. So this patch works where we've got the two frames, the two video elements connected to the same decoder. So we're getting frames from one video. Even though this one's not playing, it's still displaying the frames from this video. So that works. And I want to take this sort of hacky prototype and turn it into an actual proposal. So here's what I'm thinking. So I went through a whole bunch of attempts to try and make this work. I did a lot of research into how our video decoding stuff worked. I learned a lot. I got a lot of help. Shout out to Jean-Yves and Sataro and Paul Adeno and who else? Nicole, for giving me a sense of how things work. But this is kind of like the structure of how things work. And what we are doing right now is when we create a video, we have an underlying HTML video element class or instance of HTML video element, which is a subclass of HTML media element. And the media element has something called a media decoder. And that media decoder has something called a media decoder state machine, and that has something called a video sync. And so the stuff that's being decoded by the decoder ends up in the video sync, and the video sync is just the sort of thing that receives images, the decoded video frames. And those go to the video frame container, which the video HTML video element holds onto. And the video frame container knows how to talk to our compositor over something called an image container, which forwards the frames to our compositor so that they show up for the user. And that's a lot of complexity, and this is a very complex system. But it highlights through conversations with Sataro and Jean-Yves, it highlights a place where we think it makes sense to do the split, where we multiplex essentially. And that's at the video sync. So every video element, which is a media element, has a media decoder, which has a media decoder state machine, which has a video sync. And what I want to be able to do is take a video sync and say, hey, hook up to a different video element's video frame container. I want you to join up and still send your frames to the old video frame container, but if you have a new one, send it to that new video frame container as well. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. And that is what we're kind of doing in my example, but I'm doing it in a very hacky way. At least the implementation is very, very hacky. So I'm hoping to write up a real proposal here on how we can make this occur in a sane and safe way. Because one of the things that worries me is that because there's this ownership, like HTML media element owns the media decoder, owns the state machine, owns the video sync, we're bringing in like this other video frame container. Like the video sync has a pointer, just a raw pointer to the video frame container, and that's fine because there's this like ownership tree here where if the video frame container ever went away, it's because the HTML media element went away, which meant all of this stuff also went away. But the problem is if this video element goes away, like if we were to close our picture-in-picture window, we need the video sync to know this and not keep sending frames to something that's gone away, because that's going to be, well, in worst case, that's a use after free, but it'll at least be a crash, because we'll try and dereference a null pointer if we were to clear it out. So what I'm thinking is we make the video sync be able to have a primary video frame container and a secondary video frame container. And if there's a secondary frame container, that it be a weak pointer. That way, if this video frame container ever goes away, the video sync will notice that it's looking at a null pointer and just not send things to it. It will avoid it entirely. That's my plan. So that like this video could go away at any time, and the video sync could go away at any time, and like there's just a weak connection here, which I think might be the safest thing. That's what I'm hoping. So let's I'm going to write up a little bit of documentation on what I'm planning on doing. So, proposal. Let's pump up the font a little. I kind of like the technique I've got here of adding a web IDL method called share frames with, and what that does is it takes like the picture-in-picture video, and you pass in the source video, and it does the work of actually joining them up. But I'm thinking of, let's see here, I might want to invert that a little bit, because we have to do a lot of like mucking about and getting access to things on the source video that we don't need to do with the target video. So I actually want to make it so that we call share frames with on the source video, so that we have greater access to the underlying private infrastructure without having to, add accessors and that sort of thing. So instead of calling it share frames with, or maybe share frames with, how do I want to do this? Maybe share frames with is still an okay name. I just want to invert it so that it's this is the destination video. So add a share frames with web IDL method that is defined thusly. So let's put in some code. Why can't I put in code? I can't put in code when I'm in a list? That's crazy. I have to do it outside of a list. So maybe what I'll do then is not use a traditional list. Man. Or I'll just not worry about formatting it inside a code block. So I'll change my font then to monospaced. Oh, come on. Monospaced. Share frames with will send a copy of all decoded video frames to an alternative video element. You know what might be better is, instead of having the I have a better idea. I have a better proposal for the API. So instead of it being share frames with, which kind of gives the responsibility to the caller to have constructed a video and joining the two together, we do like clone Uh, hmm. I'm thinking of something like create. It will return an HTML video element, and it will be something like create secondary secondary container. Clone to secondary. No, that's not very clear. Clone and share frames. Create, clone, and share frames, maybe. And what it'll do, called on a video element, this will return a video element which will act as an alternative output for the original video. Act as an alternative output for the original video. Only subsequent repeated the video the returned video as long as the original, the cloned repeated calls will return the same video, return a reference to the same cloned video until that video is destroyed. So the idea being that, like, if I were to call create, clone, and share frames, I create a video element, and if I were to call create, clone, and share frames, actually, this worries me a little bit, because what if I want to make this like dead simple and kind of foolproof. What if one were to call create, clone, and share frames on a clone that already existed? Because this is very much a one-off. This is very much a special case. I don't want to have like too general a solution here because this is so special case. Create. So throws if the video element is not has I want to throw if we call it on a pre-existing clone. Because what would happen if we did that? the video sync. It's not decoding anything. Throws if the video is not decoding anything. Does not throws if the video. Is this something I need to worry about? Detecting throws if the video to do. Figure out how to make this throw if the method is called on a clone. Okay. So create, clone, and share frames. We'll do the work of cloning the original video and connecting its video sync with the clone's video frame container. This sounds like too much complexity. What I'll make it so that if you ever call it again, then we'll create a new video and we'll just redirect to the most recent one. We'll redirect to the most recent clone. That means that the secondary video frame, like if you were to have a video and you call create, clone, and share frames on it, and then you call it again, then the first one will stop having its frames shared. It will just kind of like halt. Which I think is probably reasonable. And then how will this work? So in video, HTML video element, clone the current node, then we want to do we have an example of us cloning nodes inside this native code? Yes, we do. Clone node. Static clone. Let's create static clone. It's a clone that doesn't do anything. Okay, that's not what we want. Clone node. What does clone node take as arguments? Document clone node. Or node clone node takes deep. I have to do a deep clone. It returns an error object. Okay. Clone the current node. Then what do I want to do? Get access to the underlying video frame container of the new node. Tell the current video's video sync to redirect to use the new video frame container as a secondary output point, return the clone. Okay, so that's part of it. So that's from the perspective of HTML video element. Then for video sync, well, there's actually something else in the way. Media, HTML video element. What did I need to do in order to do all this stuff? I had to get the video frame container, and I believe by default, get video frame container. I think that is a public. That's public, right? Is that public? Or is it protected? It's public, so that's good. That's what I need, that part. Now I need to get the underlying media decoder state machine. Media decoder state machine. And that's something that the M decoder has in the source video. Now the M decoder, whoops, and go back further. Get video frame container. Oh, I looked at, so if we get the decoder, we can, no, sorry. I want to look at the HTML media element. Get video frame container, which is media decoder owner. Is that how it is? HTML media element. Is it a media decoder owner? Media decoder owner. Yes, it is. So that's why it implements get video frame container. Good. And media, and so that is public, I believe. Yeah. Good. So that'll be public. And then I need to get at the decoder itself. So is the decoder public? Let's find out. Where is the decoder? It's in HTML media element. M decoder. Do we ever return it? I don't think so. And I'm pretty sure M decoder in this case is well, it is protected. But the good news is the HTML media element, if we're the video in the case where this is being called, this or self is the video that we're trying to get the decoder on, and this protected variable, we have no problem getting access to the decoder, so that's good. And then getting the state machine off of the decoder. Let's see what that's defined as. Get state machine is public, so we can get the state machine. Great. So far so good. We can get at the media decoder state machine for ourselves without a problem. And then it's all about adding a special, a new method to it to add that alternative container, that secondary container. And then inside of media decoder state machine, I can use a lot of the same technique that I was using in my proof of concept. Because what it does is it dispatches a task onto the media decoder state machine thread, which does the work of actually taking that alternative and setting it, calling the set alternative container on the media sink, which it has access to. So that's interesting. mmediasync is a what? mmediasync, which is our video sync, is a media sync. A video sync is a media sync, and what I did was I made it so that any media sync will have this like hack together a method so that every media sync has this set alternative container. But what would be really nice is if video sync had like video sync had its own methods on it that we could, like, if we are a video sync, or if mmediasync is a video sync, then we can like cast to it and then call them the specialized method on it, instead of having to implement this useless function on other things. I know that's not very object-oriented programming, but I just want to check if any media syncs do that sort of thing. Media sync, static cast, no. Video sync. How about audio sync? Does the audio sync have any sort of examples where, yeah, get position? Who calls that? Get position. Sync. Oh no, they both do that. I think is that a media sync thing? Yeah, there's a virtual method called get position, so that's no good. Shut down set volume, set playback rate, set preserves pitch, audible event, all these sort of general things. Like set volume makes no sense, I think, on a video sync. Set volume. So what it does is it talks to its underlying audio sync. So I wonder if there are certain things where, like, if you're an audio sync, oops, there are certain things that you just are just like no ops. So let's take a look. Media sync. Are there any like clearly video? Yeah, like redraw. What does that mean for audio sync? Do nothing if the sync has no video track. So there is no redraw, for example. It's just like a no op. And that might be the only example, redraw. Really like some blame on here. How do we, there we go, redraw. Draw a blank image with no frames in the video track. Who reviewed this? There's no reviewer there. Who reviewed this? C. Pierce reviewed it. And how did this work? I'm just looking at an example of us having added something to media sync. Oh, so it looks like redraw was already there. I need an example. I need from before then. Redraw. Okay, so that's when it was added. Back in the Firefox OS days. And who worked on this? Did anyone work on this on the media team? I think J.W. Wang, these folks, 3 years ago. Let me take a look at the patch. Actually, let me look at it in Mercurial. Change that in Mercurial. And it moved it from the media decoder state machine into the video sync. So originally the media decoder state machine used to do the thing where render frames single frame rendering, insert one thread, render video frames. So it's a no op in the audio case, that's fine. Is there any place where we like check to see if we're video? Is video decoding? That's interesting. We might be able to use that in the event that we're a clone. We make sure that we're not a clone. We check to see if we are decoding video. Is video decoding? Has video. What is has video? Info has video, and the video queue is not finished. It's finished. Maybe that's not enough. Media info. Has video. M info, which is media info. Presentation info. I wonder if we could add something to the media info, like, hey, you are is a clone. Bool media is a clone. And if so, then we prevent it from return the clone. So maybe I'll add that. Get access to the underlying video frame container of the node. Get access to the clone's media info and set a Boolean to say that it's a clone. That way we can check inside, create clone, and share frames that we don't call it on a pre-existing clone, which doesn't make much sense. I think that's one way we could do it. That's an idea. Okay, so media decoder state machine. So I'm thinking and media sync. Add set all set secondary container, video container. Unless there's a way to like in the media decoder state machine, like is video. If we are a video, is video decoding, has video, M video. We have video info. It'd be nice if we could like have just a special thing. I don't want to have to, I want to specialize. What way do you do this in the object-oriented programming world where, yeah, sorry, SmurfD asks, so in SearchFox you jump between revisions to get the earliest appearance of something? Yeah, that's one of the nice things about SearchFox is that like in the gutter here I can see when certain lines were added, and then I can go show earliest version with this line or show latest version without this line, and it looks to the revision just before something lands, like the changes occur, the blame is set at a particular revision, and the one just after. And I was using the before one to try and figure out when something was first introduced. To media sync. What's the object-oriented programming method of doing this sort of thing? I have a generic thing, media sync, and I have a specialized instance, video sync, and I want to call a method on the specialized instance that makes no sense on the other implementations of media sync. So a couple of ideas. We could have like media sync as video or video sync from, and then you pass it a media sync, and it will do the casting. How does that work? I've seen this pattern before. From, and how do we do that? We just do like a static cast. Maybe that's enough. Let's just do a static cast. And static cast, if I do static, live hacking says dynamic cast is it to a media sync, and if it succeeds you call the method. Dynamic cast it to a media sync. It's already a media sync. That's the thing. It's already a media sync. So do you mean dynamic cast it to a video sync? Dynamic cast. I think I need to refresh my memory on the difference between dynamic and static cast. Runtime type checking, and only works with references and pointers, whereas static cast does not offer runtime type checking. Dynamic cast only supports pointer and reference types. It returns null if the cast is impossible. So are any of these like froms using dynamic cast? Okay, so yeah, Brenny's like the other way. So good. Now one of the things I've noticed is that isn't there like a performance penalty? I'm just curious about the performance penalty of using dynamic cast. I mean, I would imagine there is going to be overhead whenever you do runtime type checking. So when do you use static cast? I just want to understand. This is what Stack Overflow says. Geeks for geeks. Let's look at the Wikipedia page. Performs explicit type conversion. The type parameter must be a data type to which the object can be converted via a known method, whether it be a built-in or a cast. The type can be a reference or an enumerator. Converting a pointer of a base class to a pointer of a non-virtual derived class. That's exactly what I want to do, is this. So maybe we can just do a static cast. No runtime type check is performed that would prevent a cast from incompatible data types such as pointers. We certainly do a lot more static casting. Let me see here. A dynamic cast. The person, when would you use it? This is Java. And then there's reinterpret cast. Or provide types. Type punning. Oh boy. Also, the result of a static cast from a pointer of a virtual base class to a pointer of a derived class is undefined. This is from Brenny. The result of a static cast from a pointer of a virtual base class to a pointer of a derived class is undefined. He says maybe we are in UB territory. What is UB territory? Unbounded? What does he mean by UB territory? Undefined behavior territory. Yeah, we want to avoid that. So maybe dynamic cast. Dynamic cast definitely sounds like a better move here. Let me look at some more examples where we use dynamic casting in our source code. We don't use it a lot. That's one thing I've noticed. Why is that? Like, that immediately kind of gets my, like, it makes me go like, huh? If we're not using it. Yeah, I would not call myself an expert of C++. I'll definitely want someone who is is more of an expert to double check my work here. But then what's reinterpret cast? Do we use that more? Quite a bit more, maybe. Define reinterpret cast. Type of casting operator used in C++ used to convert one pointer of another pointer of any type, no matter either the class is related to each other or not. Does not check if the pointer type and data point by the pointer is same or not. Eee, that sounds even worse. I kind of think we want the static type checking or the dynamic type checking. A new type is a pointer type. It returns a null pointer of that type. I want to go back to these from methods, which I've seen us use in other places. Message broadcaster from. Do static casting between message broadcaster, manager, message listener manager. It's like different variations on something. Static casting. Right. It's not from going from a virtual base class I have a feeling the fact that our source code is fighting me here, that my instinct is telling me that I'm probably going down the wrong path, or not a dangerous path, but an ill-advised path. From that's a query interface, which is like a dynamic cast. Maybe that's why I don't see so many dynamic casts, is because we use query interface for that sort of thing. Okay. Well, the other thing we could do, this maybe instead of trying to do a cast, is like, so options, dynamic cast, between from the media sync to the video sync, implement method on media sync as no op, like we do with redraw, and then only implement the method for video sync. The other thing we could do, Brenny says, or SmurfD says, guess if you look at the two different types, they are similar, a bit behind. The different types, yeah, media sync, audio sync, video sync, they are sort of the same. It's like media sync is like the interface, the abstract interface, and then video sync and audio sync are the derived classes, the derived concrete classes. Brady says, for more reading, the difference seems to be that if dynamic cast fails, you get a null pointer. In static cast, if the types don't work at runtime, it might explode. Right. Code smell. OOP smell. We definitely don't dynamic cast a lot. The only time, except with query interface. Implement method on media sync as a no op, and then implement the method for video sync only. This is probably the safest. Any other ideas? I meant the example you looked at where you had the cast between two different types. Two different types. You could do is video and is audio and check the static, then static cast. The problem is I don't think I can, like you say, Brenny, I don't think I can static cast from a virtual base to a derived class. I don't think I can do that. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's why I hacked together the original approach of just putting the method on media sync in the first place, is because I was having problems doing a static cast. SmurfD says, no, I mean, we do. The only reason I'm thinking this might be the better option as well is that there is already a pre-existing precedent for this with redraw. Pre-existing precedent. If I'd be taking, if we want to make some specialized video only method mechanism down the line, redraw would probably go with us with the new method we're talking about adding. That sounds like follow-up work to me. SmurfD had said, I meant the example you looked at where you had the cast, the underscore cast, between two different types. Those are probably quite similar. I'm not sure which example he's referring to. Brenny has pointed to an example of in the compositor.h where we have an abstract class async read back buffer with a virtual methods here. We do static cast here. So maybe I was just static casting incorrectly. Use is video and then static cast. Okay. Now I think media decoder state machine knows if it's a video. Is video decoding. Is video decoding is true. Whoopsie daisy, didn't mean to open up this tab. Like we saw earlier, is video decoding is true if and only if has video is what it's called, has video. And do we do that elsewhere? Has video. If master, yeah, handle video suspend timeout if we don't have video. So this is how we check to see if we're a video. So maybe that'd work out. Okay, let's try that. Let's see if that'll work. Has video. Let's try that for now. Okay. And then we in our task thread, we get access to the underlying video sync and via the above mechanism, and call a new method set, or what did I want to call it? Set secondary video container. Set secondary video container on it, passing in the video container pointer, video frame container. Maybe set secondary video frame container. Have the video sync hold a weak ref to the secondary video frame container. Okay. Let's see if we can do this. We've got like just a couple minutes left, but I'm gonna see how far I can get here. What part of this do I want to attack? Let's rename our method here, and let's also give it the function is Chrome or XBL or UA widget to prevent web content from calling it. Create, clone, and share frames, and we want to actually return an HTML video element. Then we are going to need to update our share frame. We're going to need to update our method definitions here. I need to remember what it means whenever we return an element from a WebIDL binding, from a web binding. So like clone node, for example, dxr clone node. WebIDL, we have like this clone node thing, and that returns a node. So we must have a clone node function on node itself, and it returns an already add reft NSI node. So maybe I'll do that to start. This clone node. Node. Character from node. 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 Current node. So we like turn the content, turn ourselves into a node, and we'll return a node. And so we're going to change. Oh, and I also probably want to be able to return errors in case things go wrong. I believe I can say that with throws. So throws. And let's see here. Clone node, and there's an error result as the final argument or the final param in the definition. Okay. How's the format? Okay. Keep it inside. So that's like that, and then I'm going to change the name, create, clone, and share frames. Ooh. And then we'll take this definition, and we're going to move down here, and we're going to say and it's not the source video anymore. That this will be a we actually don't want to take a video. We ourselves are the video, and we're returning a new one, so we don't actually need an argument there. So I can return this I can remove this argument. And let's see here. I can just get rid of that. That's nice. And then all sorts of errors can occur. If it can't get my frame container, then what does one do with these, these errors? I'm trying to remember how it works. A error, what can I do with them? A error, I can call .throw on it. A error .throw, and then I can pass error codes. So for now, I'm going to go ns error. What would make sense here? Ns error unexpected. What's the definition? Nope. I want to go back. Ns error unexpected. That makes sense. Okay, so we'll throw there, and then we'll return null pointer. Getting at my underlying state machine. And then cloning the video. Clone node. This clone node. I assume I can do this. False. RV. Failed, return pointer. And actually, clone node should return the actual cloned node. And then I want the video frame container from that cloned node. How do I do that? I want like the HTML video element from the node. That's a good example. From node or null. This might be perfect. HTML video element from node or null. Let's find an example of from node or null, because I think this is used all over the place probably. Hey, original node. Hey, original node is an NSI node, and we're going to get, great, we're going to get a HTML video element new vid equals, or I'm going to call it clone video equals HTML video element from node or null, and pass in the cloned node. And then if that doesn't work, if not clone video, then we're going to again throw, and we're done. Otherwise, now that we have our clone video, we can get the video frame container from it. I don't actually think we need our own video frame container, but I can use that. I like doing this check because if we don't have a video frame container, none of this really makes sense. Clone frame container equals clone video, get video frame container, and if we don't get that, we'll explode, and then we will invoke add alternative container. I'm going to call it add secondary container, video frame container, and we are going to pass it this, and then we are going to return the node. What does that look like? Return clone.forget. Right. Cloned node.forget. We hand ownership to the caller. Right? Already add reft. Yes. So now we have to rename some stuff here. Was it alternative? Invoke add secondary video frame container. And then add secondary video frame container. And then here we're going to rename these alternative this. Invoke async. Is there another example where we use invoke async and we don't do anything with the not really. Okay. Anyways, oh, I don't actually need. No, I want to call that a secondary. We're going to say ba-boop, 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 and we're going to call this invoke, or not invoke, I'm just going to call it add secondary video frame container. And go there, there, and we're going to have something on media sync. So this is where we're going to do our check. So if mmediasync, what were we saying? If mmediasync has video, or I guess I can just do like has video, static cast video sync. Is that static cast pointer? Oh, I see. Static cast video sync on a secondary .get video sync. Oh, video sync. Video equals static cast that, and then we're going to say vs add set secondary video frame container a secondary, and I'm going to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to say promise create and reject. And where is create and reject? And this error abort sounds good enough to me. Set secondary. I'm mostly just making this up as I go. I will definitely need thorough review. Create and reject NS error abort. Why would one use this? Abort. NS error abort. Failed in the call should abort. Could not complete properly. That's actually a pretty decent one. Even though I'm not doing anything, I'm just throwing it out. Should probably do something more useful here. So on video sync, I'm gonna go into media sync, set alternative. I'm gonna get rid of this method. I'm going to create something on video sync instead. Called, and it's not an override, and set secondary video frame container a secondary. Video sync, set alternative, I'm going to call it set secondary, and it's going to be a ref pointer. Called a secondary, and then what I want to do is I want to get a weak pointer to it. get weak pointer? Is that what it's called? How? Weak reference owner. How do I get a weak pointer? Weak pointer. Let's see. What's the best way to get a weak pointer? Tab child on doc shell. That's NS weak pointer. Video frame. No, presentation connection. Supports weak. What is the difference between NS weak pointer and weak reference? That's in XPCOM. Do get weak reference. That's for something that is like probably implements supports weak reference. NSI supports weak reference, which I don't think video frame container does. Okay, I actually am going to have to go in a second, but we're making pretty decent progress. Stream track listener, right. So that doesn't implement it. It doesn't give you exactly the interface. Why can't I just call them that's for weak references? Between the pair, how do I make class support weak reference? Create interface. Roll in that. Alternatives. This was back in 2000. This was updated. So I wonder if there's like better stuff now in the tree. Weak ref. Or IPC, that's handy. Oof, not many uses of just straight up weak ref. NST weak ref. See, st weak ref.h. On plugin native window win. Plugin native window. P window. ST weak ref for use of generic C++ objects, not thread safe. Ugh, that's the problem because we're on a different thread. Oh, that's not good. Not thread safe. So the decoder, all the video sync, all the stuff operates on its own thread. And the video frame container is owned by something on the main thread. So I need somehow to get like thread safety here. Shoot. All right, well, that's something I'm gonna have to figure out down the line. This is currently busted, or at least it's not. It might. This might actually compile. Actually, let's see what happens. But as it stands, there's still quite a bit of work left. But trust me when I say that Sataro's, like we saw the two videos side by side. The technique of setting a secondary video frame container works. It's just that we need to kind of iron out the plan. So that's where we're at. Hey. Thank you so much for watching episode 165 of The Joy of Coding. That was fun. Join me next week where maybe we'll be doing the same thing. We'll see. Hopefully I'll have made some progress by then. So yeah, whatever you're doing this week, have a great time doing it and take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Let me just switch over here. Take care. Bye-bye.